In this video, I'm going to show you how to build and raise pre-seed funding with an AI MVP. And this is going to come in 9 steps. And not only am I going to show you how, but I'm going to explain to you how I'm doing it. And I'm using AI to build MVPs all day long. I created this video because there are a lot of founders out there on my channel who are trying to do AI-based startups. And you're simply not going to compete trying to build AI from scratch. There's a way to do it. And there are tools out there right now that make building MVPs so simple and so easy, but can lead to the next unicorn, the next billion-dollar company. It's so important that you pay attention because the industry is moving so fast. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. Before we continue, my name is Ed Kang, 7-time funded founder with 2 exits. That's just a fancy way of saying I failed a bunch of times to your benefit because I use videos like this and this YouTube channel to try and help you avoid some of the catastrophic mistakes that I've made. One of the mistakes that I made was investing in an AI type startup, an AI venture. And guess what happened? I plunked in some money, and then just a few months later, OpenAI ChatGPT blew me out of the water. So I'm going to say you're not going to avoid the mistakes completely, but if you learn from my mistakes, your life might just be a little bit easier because it's tough enough as it is. And I'm going to be totally open and transparent because AI is a bullet train. It is on the tracks. It is moving so fast. We have to talk about this and pay attention. I'm also the Chief Strategy Officer for Startups.com. And if you're part of Startups.com, thank you so much for joining our online accelerator community. If you're not, feel free to check us out. A lot of free resources on our website. And do the YouTube thing. Like, comment, subscribe. Always helpful to hear from you. Thank you for your support. Let's jump in on how to build an MVP, then raise money for your next AI-based unicorn. The first thing you're going to do is pick a problem in an underserved vertical based on your domain expertise. And a pro tip here is to ask ChatGPT about it. It's important to pick an underserved vertical, not go where everybody else is going. Video editing using AI is done. It's saturated. Generative AI is saturated. It's done. Unless you've got an amazing development team and you are creating something so unique and contrarian that nobody else can do, you've got an award-winning team, a Nobel Prize-winning team, a team that hasn't been snatched up by all these other AI companies with tons of money. You are literally a genius in this field. Stay away from those saturated verticals where all the money has already gone. Stay away from those verticals where you've got big incumbent companies already working on it or think that your idea is a great idea. Of course, it's a no-brainer that we want AI video editing. Stay away from that. Go to the underserved niche based upon your domain expertise. For example, I have a domain expertise in advising founders, and then I go deeper in early stage founders. I'm using LLMs, I'm using AI to build MVPs to help me solve those problems. It's underserved. I'm building AIs to build MVPs for me in these niches where it's so niche of a niche that people are going to ignore me. And that's okay, because that's where you have to start, because I don't want to be competing with all these other big companies because I'm going to have to spend so much money. You can do all this for literally $0 or the cost of a ChatGPT membership, ChatGPT subscription, $20 a month. This is all possible. So stay out of those competitive niches. On top of which, ask ChatGPT about it. I like to go to ChatGPT and say, hey, I'm seeing this problem. Describe this problem for me. What data do you have? Tell me if this is actual problem. Tell me if there are other companies trying to solve it or what other things have been done to try and solve the problem if they don't realize that a solution is available. I do all my idea validation by talking to ChatGPT first, and then another thing I do is I talk to actual customers, and we're going to get into those steps. Step 2, you are going to experiment. Keyword is experiment with prompt engineering in novel ways. You're going to test different LLMs. I use a website called openrouter.com where I get to experiment with all the different LLMs for one single credit price. I load my credits and I get to bounce around instead of paying multiple subscriptions for these different LLM models. I still have my $20 OpenAI ChatGPT because I use that the most, but when I'm experimenting with all the rest, I go to openrouter.com. So experiment. And you want to use proprietary data. This is where your domain expertise comes in. Ask ChatGPT how to prompt. Let me explain how this works. I go to ChatGPT and I say, hey, if I was going to prompt you to give me a solution for this problem, what information do you need? And ChatGPT does it for me. I'll also take my proprietary data. This is the data that I'm going to have. This is my expertise. I'll upload a PDF of all the things that I know, a special framework, something proprietary to me, intellectual property, because nobody else has that. You have to get to the point where you are prompting your LLM and experimenting in a unique way. Because as they say, quote, raw dogging prompts, just saying, hey, solve this problem for me, anybody can do that. But the more you prompt ChatGPT or you prompt these LLMs in a unique way, the more you're separating yourself, and you can put that sort of behind the curtain and make that your special sauce. You may be sitting on all this data. Like, I'm working with a company that wants to use AI for psychological assessments, psychographic assessments, personality testing. They literally have millions and millions of points of data. That's proprietary. So I put some of that data into a PDF. I fed it in ChatGPT and I said, how do I prompt you to get to this point in time, to get to this solution that I'm looking for? And ChatGPT told me. Another thing you can do is ask experts what they would ask manually in terms of trying to get the solution out for the customer, and then explain that's the process to ChatGPT. You're looking for those novel, insightful ways to prompt, because LLMs are just generalists. They hallucinate all the time. And that's the reason creating something specifically for an underserved vertical is going to help you with these next steps, especially when it comes to showing investors and getting that pre-seed capital. Step 3, you're going to test these results with real users. Right now, it's just manual. You're doing manually, and then if you come out with a result, you end up sending it to a real user who has the problem. So here's what I do. Remember, I was validating my idea, doing some customer discovery. So I contacted a user and I said, hey, tell me how you experienced this problem. And we just had a chat about it online. And then I ran all that through. And guess what? This person that I talked to, he's a good buddy of mine. And Jacob, if you're watching this, well, you know the secret. I didn't even do it myself. I took all the inputs, the conversation, I loaded up a ChatGPT prompt, and I said, here's what I know, everything I will put into it, give me a result and explain what is going on. And I want to do analysis on the problem that this user was experiencing. And guess what? This feedback came back. Let me show you what he said. He said, whoa, Ed, I'm running into a meeting, so I want to come back to this. But first read through is that this is one of the most accurate descriptions of the problems that I've read. And I used ChatGPT. I used an LLM. I used AI to get to this result. So that's my validation. Do it manually. Nothing stops you from cutting and pasting your prompt and doing it over and over again, because you are going to be able to get so much feedback. It's going to be so quick. It was literally half a day for me to set up a bunch of these prompts, get a ChatGPT prepared for me to get this result. And then I'm going to continue asking more and more people, and that feedback is going to build and build and build, and then you're onto something. Do not proceed until you talk to real people. It might do it for you, and you might be satisfied with the results, but until you get that validation from an actual user, do not continue on this path. It doesn't take anything for you to reach out to someone with an email, reach out to someone on chat, or call them on the phone and say, hey, I'm doing this, I'm experimenting, let me send you some results that I'm getting from this new cool AI model that I'm building. Step 4, now you're building an MVP. You're going to build a custom GPT, or there are so many AI agents out there. I cannot tell you how many programs that I'm coming across where literally you can talk to a bot and it will build an MVP for you. You do not need a dev shop if you're not technical. But even if you are technical, companies are using these AI agents for programming all the time now, huge companies, and you don't want to get left behind. If they're using it, guess what? You should be using it too, even if you're technical. Nothing stops you from accelerating your development and getting the results if you're technical, and then use your technical skills to bring in the APIs and connect, do your widget, and get programs talking to each other. Use all the duct tape that you want to get this cohesive MVP going. But in the beginning, use these tools to accelerate your continuous feedback loop. Get it out there, get feedback, and keep experimenting, because speed is going to be important. It takes way too long to build custom AI from scratch now, so start using AI to build AI, and that's the reason it's accelerating so fast. AI is creating this exponential leap in terms of the output of other AI. Don't be left behind. Use the tools. And you may be purist and say, I need to code from scratch. Well, you are going to be left behind, and you don't want to be in that situation. But this is such a boon for those of you who are not technical. I'm not technical, and I'm creating AI-based MVPs all day long for all different types of things. Even if it never sees the light of day, I'm trying the MVP to solve my problem and some other people's problems, and then that will help you with these next steps coming up. Step 5, you're going to test your MVP with customers and get feedback, but you're also going to explore pricing. So now you've got this MVP, and like ChatGPT allows you to do, you can send out a link to your custom GPT and say, hey, take a look. Sometimes I'll embed some of this AI into another skin, or I'll use another skin or another program to get the data inputs, and then I'll manually manually upload the result. I'm doing this with members of startups.com all day long, other founders. I'm testing out my custom GPTs, my models, my MVPs for Startup Advisory on them, and they are paying. So that is the best type of feedback that I'm going to get. When they come back to me and say, wow, thank you for these insights. Wow, thank you for this output. I go, yes, it's starting to get validated. And then I'm having conversation with customers. I'm saying, what would you pay for this? Or how much is this worth for you? You think about it from a perspective of, if I've used AI to develop some type of custom package or recommendations for advisory, if they would have gone to a consultant, they would have gone to someone and said, hey, build this for me from scratch, they would have paid easily $5,000. So I asked them, I say, hey, is this worth the $5,000 that you would have paid someone to custom build this for you? And they say, yeah, absolutely. And I go, okay, now what if I charged you $500 and made this a 10x solution? You see, I'm having these conversations about pricing after your solution has been validated. Because with AI, you can make a 10x solution because you don't have to put in all those hours like you were doing it custom. Sure, manually in the beginning just to test it, but then eventually you're going to get to scale, and that's what these AI MVPs are going to allow you to do. So don't be afraid to knock your pricing down or to have those conversations. Say, what if I got it for you at 10%, made it a 10x solution, and have those upfront conversations, because the best feedback that you're ever going to get is when you tell the customer a price. And the more magic moments that you give them and say, hey, we've accelerated the time frame or we've saved you the cost, the more they're going to be eating up what you're giving them, and they're going to say, thank you so much. And that's when you move on to the next step. You're going to prepare that pitch deck that tells the story of your progress. I've got lots of videos on my channel. I'm not going to go on with this, but now that you've got the story and you've told customers about it and you've gotten the results and you've gotten their feedback and their pricing, guess what? You can start to tell investors. So develop that pitch deck and make sure it's super tight, clear, and concise. And guess what? Investors love hearing MVP type pitches. And you can say AI is super hot, but you're not going to be investing in OpenAI anymore. You're not going to be investing in these other companies because your money's not going to go far. But I've developed a great product in a specific vertical that nobody's looking at. And guess what? OpenAI, they're going to want to buy me. Google's want to buy me. Microsoft, all these companies are going to want to buy me because I got proprietary data they're not looking at because they're working on the generalists. They're trying to work towards artificial general intelligence. So they're just blanketing everything. You are going to focus, and eventually you are going to be valuable to one of those companies, and investors love hearing that. It's only a matter of time before you start to see more of those acquisitions. They're happening right now. You just don't hear a lot of them. But these AI companies, smaller ones, are getting gobbled up. It's a great exit. But guess what? Maybe you get to the point where you do have such an advantage, you can compete with some of these other bigger companies. Well, you'll be able to raise a lot more money to do that. The whole point is get to the point where you have that choice. Then with step 7, you're going to show investors, and remember, you're targeting specific investors, and you're going to ask how much traction they need. They need to see a certain amount of traction and target the right ones. Cannot stress this enough. Make sure you target the right investors. Do not go to a seed investor that needs to see signs of product market fit with your pre-seed deck. So important. This is one of the hacks that I use with investors all the time. I say, do you understand the problem and do you understand the solution and how it works? And they go, yeah. I say, what do you think? They say, wow, it's really great. And I go, great. Are you ready to invest? How much are you going to invest? And they say, no, not yet. Well, what do you need to see? How much traction? And they will tell me, I need to see more paying customers. I need to see you double month over month in terms of paying customers, or I need to see $100,000 ARR. I don't care what it is. Every investor, especially early stage angel investors, have their different investment theses and different levels of risk they're willing to tolerate. I find that out. I don't sit in a vacuum like a little bubble or my own echo chamber and completely fret and get worried and stressed out about how much traction investors need to see because I'm asking them. And then I put them on the list. And if they say I need to see at least one paying customer, I need to see an enterprise customer, then I can contact them and I can say, guess what? You asked for this. I've got this inflection point. I'm showing you what I've done as far as traction. It meets your criteria. When are you going to write me that check? Investors are totally impressed if you ask those types of questions and you come back to them with progress. So the main takeaway in this step is ask how much traction your investors need to see. Make sure you've done all the previous steps, and if your pitch deck is clear, they will have that traction conversation with you. They want to have that conversation with you. Step 8, start selling and track the metrics. Do it manually if you need to. I've talked about this the whole time. open up shop and do it manually and use your AI tools. Even if you need to use it as kind of a black box inside your own consulting practice, do it manually, but go out and make money. I've told this story so many times. The first SaaS company that I ended up selling, that I exited out of, the one that interviewed down at Y Combinator, I did everything manually. I sold the product, I showed it to them, and then I went and used Photoshop and Illustrator, all the Adobe products, and I stayed up into the wee hours of the morning doing everything manually until I was able to generate $135,000 in revenue. And then I took all that revenue and I sunk it into development. That's when I got the dev shop. But until then, I proved it out and I knew exactly what I needed to build. I did it manually. But nobody knew. They thought it was a computer program. Well, guess what? I don't have to do it manually anymore. Now I can build my own custom GPT. I can build my own AI agent to do the manual part for me. And therefore, I can go out and sell it at a lower price, or I can sell more of it and start to generate even more revenue. There simply is not an excuse for you to be able to use these tools right off the shelf and go out and generate money if you're properly solving a problem, if you got the right solution in a unique way and you've proven it, you've proven that you can solve problems for customers, other customers are going to come and they're going to pay you. Go make that money, because you don't want to be sitting around for investors to look at other AI deals, and you want to be able to create that FOMO, that greed, and that fear of missing out with investors saying, guess what? I'm already making so much money that I may not need you. And as I always say, the best time to raise money is when you do not need it. In fact, all the money is just going to go into growth, not to figure out how to make that money, but to figure out how to make more of that money at scale. Step 9, you're going to keep investors posted. You already know what inflection points they need to see, how much traction they need to see, so you know exactly what to communicate. Now, let me explain the difference between inflection points and milestones. A milestone is, hey, we passed this mark, we launched our product. Hey, we got 100 users. That's great as far as a milestone is concerned. But an inflection point will include milestones, but those are points in time where the value of your company suddenly increases, which also means the risk of investing in your startup suddenly decreases. You may get 100 users, but you may be able to say, we got 100 users and we just passed $10,000 MRR in revenue. Other inflection points, the dominoes fall, is when you get investors. You can say, hey, we just raised our $50,000 check. Our first $50,000 is in the bank. That's another inflection point, because that $50,000 post-money valuation has increased the value of your startup and decreased the risk. So don't just send investors emails saying, oh, we just did this and we did that and everything is going well. Those are super boring. Send investors, potential investors, inflection points. Say, yay, we did it. We just crossed this number of users and this is how much money that we're making. We're growing. We just reached 10% week over week growth when we've been growing 2% week over week. Those are the inflection points. Get into the mind of the investor, and remember, greed and FOMO, the fear of missing out, that's what inflection points do, and communicate them. Learn to communicate those inflection points properly. At the same time, work your tail off to develop those inflection points, and you'll serve yourself so much better. You'll make your fundraise so much easier. And here's my bonus step. Make money so you don't need investors. I know founders. I've talked to them. They're making money right now that when I talk to them, I say, how much money you need? Are you running out of runway? They go, no, we're making enough money to keep ourselves afloat. We're default alive. Investors love that. Do it. You can do it right now with AI, because as I said, all the way up to this point in time, there's so many people paying for other people to do things manually. With AI, you start automating it and you can go and eat their lunch. You can eat their market share. There's so many people who are not doing things with AI assisted technologies. They are not using AI to make things more efficient and more cost effective. Even if they are using AI, they're still charging the main prices. And that is the perfect opportunity for you to go make money. And that's where the concept of a unicorn comes in. Instead of a unicorn, UNICORN, make a unicorn, YO unicorn, because it's based on how much money you need to make. Startups get killed by their overhead all the time. Engineers, their staff, operations. With AI, that all goes away. I see founders going out there all the time, creating one-person company, two-people companies, and saying, guess what? We're making $1 million a month. We're okay. We don't even need VC. Why would we want to give away all that revenue and give away that cap table, that equity, and bite into it when we're doing just fine? And if you get to the point where you're doing $1 million a month, doing 10 million, guess what? A private equity company will come in and make you an offer for $50 million a year. Go and exit. You don't have to share that with anybody, versus going out and hiring all these staff and bulking up and getting to the point where, sure, you may have a $1 billion exit, but you've got only a few points in the company. You end up pocketing $50 million anyway. It just makes total amount of sense that if you can reduce the overhead in a company and do things for less, why sell the company? Why raise investment? Build a YO unicorn, a unicorn based on what you can make, what you want to make, your lifestyle, and you as the founder, not the investor. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times where you need that investment money. Say you are sitting on something that can definitely change the world. But if you're working something that you found that just serves a niche and is generating good cash flow, and maybe it's just a boring business, and eventually you sell to another LLM, you sell to another AI company, then do it. Don't break your back. Don't put on the stress. Don't bring on investors, which is hiring your own boss. Think about it. Just consider it. I'm going to say this over and over again because I'm to the point where I don't need VC to make my startup career thrive. I'm very fortunate, and I've already done a lot of these steps. But what I'm so excited about is now I could redo those steps with AI, and that's what I'm doing just to see if I can hit the jackpot again. The pressure's not on for me because I don't have investors, and maybe the pressure doesn't need to be on you either. One last pro tip here is use AI for everything. The industry is moving too fast not to. Nothing is moving faster than this industry. They are popping up all over the place. One moment I'm using Midjourney, and then I see all these tweets about these other free tools that are just as good as Midjourney. ChatGPT just launched Sora, but I've seen footage from all these other video creation AIs that I think are just as good, and they're amazing. It's this massive arms race because they have so much dry powder in their war chest. It may seem overwhelming, but go out and use all these tools. Pay attention to what the industry is doing, and you'll find that tool set that is so exciting for you that you can use over and over again to develop these MVPs and show the investors that you can do it. Because guess what? You may not strike gold with the MVP that you're building, but if you develop the skill set, investors will look at you and say, what else are you working on? And you can go back to them and say, we are now using AI to solve this. This made us a certain amount of money, but not enough to raise investment, or this one ended up being a dud, but we took the lessons and now we're applying it in different areas. Investors want to hear that story, put it in your pitch decks, and go out and raise that pre-seed, that early stage capital. My whole point being is the goalposts are moving. You cannot raise pre-seed very well at all without actually having a working prototype, something with AI that's actually working and most likely generating money. The great news is it's easier than ever to do that. Follow along, watch some of the other videos that I'm going to put on the screen right now, and let's get to it. Let me know what you think. If you have other questions, I'm going to be sharing my journey building AI MVPs, and who knows where we end up with. 2025 is going to be an exciting year for all these different AI agents that are out there. I'm going to see lots of different variety, and I look forward to seeing them all coming from you. Thanks again for hanging out in this video. I will see you in the next one.